With any type of industry and with any type of development, especially of this magnitude, there's always going to be environmental, health, safety concerns associated with those. There is an ethical way to run this business, and there are definitely unethical ways to run this business.
You can't bring back what has been damaged out there, all the pipelines, all the well sites, all the facilities. That area is forever damaged. We're just turned off on a mile 98 on Alaska Highway. This is, the Yahi trap line. My family, this trap line's been here for generations. Our historical camp's here. It's no longer here because there's a pipeline there now. On the map, we are in the heart of the oil and gas activity, and has been for the last 30 years. In the last 15 years, it really climbed to points of our land department couldn't keep up. I've been asking about the cumulative effects of the impacts since 2000. And the province and industry would not pay attention to our people, our way of life, our critical areas. They were always pushed aside. Fracking is, I'm not up with it. I ain't, because we need a lot more information. The information was not ever introduced to the people or the communities. By handing out pamphlets, you ain't consulting with people. You're giving them notification.
When I first got into council back in 2003, I was just like everybody else. I opposed economic development that had impacts on the land. But it was pointed out to me that I had to take a bigger look at the bigger picture, including unemployment, training, suicides, housing, mold. And the more I looked into it, the more I realized that our people deserve a future. At what point do our people actually see the benefit of being included or getting a job or, getting the opportunity to own a house? I mean, enough with the speeches, enough with the promises, enough with bad-mouthing big bad government because everything's government's fault. Everything's government's fault. I mean, I truly believe at some point somebody's got to take a look and say, yeah, our people deserve a better future. They deserve a better life. And God knows we promised it for so long.
We have poor housing. We have low levels of education. This is what our community looks like today. To me, that should be an eye-opener to want things better for our people. We can just continue administering poverty and collect a measly honorarium and wait out our term, or we can make some lasting and meaningful change for our communities.
My name is Mcdougal. I'm a well operations team lead with Shell, and we are currently on drilling rig Precision 573. We're drilling lateral wells for shale gas development in the Groundbirch area. We try to concentrate the number of wells on location to minimize the surface impact, and being able to push horizontal wells further and further, we minimize the number of wells that are required to develop the area. We drill with fresh water when we're at surface, and that's to avoid any contaminants at all from getting into groundwater. And then we case that off and protect groundwater when we continue drilling. The second part of the well is drilled with salted flock water. It's sodium chloride. It's almost like table salt added to the water, and that's to ensure that we have the right hydrostatic weight while drilling the next section. When we get further down and we get into the lateral section of the well, it's about 2,500 meters down, we flip to an oil-based system to ensure that we can drill as far as possible. Again, it's all part of getting the most well we can without disturbing surface. The fluid is actually quite expensive, so we don't ever get rid of it. We continuously reuse it on surface, pump it back down hole, bring it back to surface, filter out debris, and pump it again. When we drill to the final depth, we pull the drill bit and the drill string out of hole, and we run casing all the way down. It's specifically designed to ensure that it remains integral throughout the life cycle of the well. In a shale gas reservoir, there's not a lot of porosity and permeability to allow gas or oil to flow naturally. We have to create that permeability, and we do that by pressuring up the well. So we create those fractures to ensure that the gas will flow to surface. You do use quite a bit of water in that process, and we do reuse that water as much as possible. The water that we use here in Groundbirch with Shell is reclaimed wastewater from the town of Dawson Creek that previously wasn't being used. So on location, when the gas finally makes its way to surface, it goes through our surface facilities here locally. They're called separators, and they just separate any debris that might be coming up in the well as well. It goes into the pipeline into our gas plant that's about 15 to 20 kilometers away, and at that point it becomes ready for commercial distribution.
The Saturn facility is, I don't know if you guys noticed it or how many plants you've been to, but when you came in, it doesn't smell like a gas plant. The Saturn facility is 100% vapor recovery, so all vapors are recovered and put back into the gas stream. So nothing is vented to atmosphere here in the plant. That's just the way that the plant was designed. The matter of using water in our process, the water is recycled to the point where we are not drawing the water from where our sources that we used to. We actually manage our frac schedules with the pond, with our water storage levels.
One elder says they were being smothered out, by all this activity. That's the fear the elders have.
The chief and councillors are elected in, I would say, under the DIA, they had to be elected chief and councillor. And it's altogether different from the hereditary system. They were here way before the Indian Act. So this is where it's getting a big conflict, because right now they're going over the hereditary chief, the pipeline and the ban, and the hereditary chief are not respected.
The government chief system is right now with our nation is with the Indian Act, and we're similar to a municipality where we oversee everything: water, sewer, garbage, roads, infrastructure, capital, housing, social issues, economic issues. We do all of those things on a very limited budget. We've been given jurisdiction. We're a democratic society where we're elected in. We serve the membership. Within our nation, we've been able to develop a hereditary chief protocol with the government council, which I think that's a step forward, because we know that both systems exist. Both systems aren't going away, and we just need to find a way to work together so that our nation moves forward.
For me, it's really the health and wellness first. You got to really change the way people think and feel about themselves so they can feel good about themselves, so that they can pursue an education with, much more confidence.
From my perspective, when people are oppositional and say no without all the information, I think that it's more fear-based. Education and awareness needs to happen. There's a lot of missing information that can help our people make informed decisions. And it's up to the councils and even the hereditary chiefs to do their homework, do their due diligence to make sure that the information is getting out to the community members so that at the end of the day they're able to make an informed decision.
We also had to educate the community, right? So we did an LNG 101, 201, 301. We showed the people exactly why this was all happening, what the demand was, and what we were doing to mitigate the impacts. We were able to, affect some outcomes, like where the pipe was going to go, if it was, like I was saying, if it affected a moose winter range or it affected a goat winter range. anything like that. We were able to manipulate it. So, engaging was definitely the way to go. We went from 1/3 of the people supporting the projects to 2/3 of the people supporting the projects after we were done. And that was because we gave them further education on exactly what everything was and dispelling some of the myths that were around that.
Kitimat is the destination for the downstream sides as for the export for the LNGs. And of course, with them finding or locating all these gas reserves up in northeastern BC in the upstream, Kitimat is a perfect place to be able to get to Asia quicker. We're one day actually quicker shipping than it is out of Vancouver. And we do have a ice-free deep sea port here that is very protected. And it really does make sense to have an LNG facility here.
I am Luke Strimbold. I'm the mayor for the village of Burns Lake. I just started my second term as mayor. When we look over the last few years, First Nations have taken a stand in that they want to be players in our economic development in our region. They want an opportunity to participate in the business. But this is a new era. This is something new for our community. People are unsure of what it looks like. So it's important to have those that are doing well tell their story and how it is a benefit to their business, the First Nation community, and in large, our entire community.
There was always a lot of challenges living right in Burns Lake between the band level and the village level. But that's changed quite a bit over the last few years, and working with Luke Strimbold over the last couple of years has been a great opportunity. I think the biggest challenge for everybody is protecting the environment, and every First Nation wants to protect the environment. It's our future.
My neighbors from the south, their concerns with the fish population, the spawning and whatnot, their fight with the government, and that I understand that. I totally understand, because we're going through the same. In the last 5 years, the moose, our main diet, is wiped out due to all the activity.
I think to get on board of the environmental aspect of all these LNG projects is to be working right with them so you can direct them. It's like steering the ship where you want it to go and making sure things are done properly.
We as Kitsillis people, we pride ourselves being building and working relationships with not only government but corporations and organizations as well. We have to be engaging and compromising. Like I said, we're not going nowhere. Non-First Nation people are not going nowhere. So we all have to learn to work together. We all live on one planet. We got to work with them and get as much benefit as possible, and take those benefits and put them back into our community, into services and programs, training, things like that, and just getting involved from the get-go.
I mean, Aboriginals, Indians talk about it all the time, the environmental impact. But when you're talking about emissions on a global scale, I don't think people truly understand the amount of impact that energy use that Asia is going to demand. You're not going to stop that population growth, and you're not going to stop the idea of Asians wanting a standard of living that's equal to Canada or United States. They're going to continue to go after diesel, oil, coal. So do we provide them with a cleaner energy for the short term until they can get solar power going or wind power, give them an alternative to burning all that dirty energy?
Renewables, your wind power, solar power, and your hydroelectrics are great. But on a global basis, to have all those take over, clearly we're not there yet, and we're not even close. So you're going to have to burn or expend some type of non-renewable resource. So when you look at the non-renewables, clearly LNG, or natural gas as it's going to be once they use it over there, is clearly a better solution on a global situation.
Things are changing, like from the way back years, not like the olden days. Was hardly any that DIA, they wouldn't give us any fundings for anything that we want. But now that they're speaking of everything, and at least they're getting fundings for it.
I guess in the early days, 40, 50 years ago, there was zero consultation. There was nothing. They just did whatever they wanted. But with all the court cases and all the First Nations that are coming together and working together, that has changed a lot.
Probably the biggest change in industry development nowadays is that all government levels, both provincial, municipal, federal, and of course the industry, they all have to have relations with First Nations. And it's important that you build that relationship right from day one. As soon as you're thinking of your project, you need to go to all the First Nations that will be impacted and start consulting with them and hearing their concerns and working with them.
My name is Mindy Hanyu. I work for Shell Canada from the Tahltan Nation, which is northwest BC. And I've lived in Fort St. John for most of my life. I work with 5 of the nations in northeast BC where Shell has activity and where we're impacting their land in a number of capacities. From an engagement perspective, from talking about the projects that we want to develop in the area, to a community relations perspective. So getting in there and working with the community members, hearing what the concerns are, and taking those concerns back to Shell and seeing what we can do to correct that, or even their suggestions on how we can do things better. It's important because if we are going to be in their backyard, as a good neighbor, we need to give back to that community in what they've identified as needs of theirs.
We live with the consequences as being left behind by our industry, government. We know that. There's areas of the relationship between province and ourselves and other nations, industry, it has to change. Here are concerns. Work with us. We have to be part of that plan moving forward.